In this video, I'm going to show you the exact vibe code tools that you can use to build your own mobile or web app startup. This is the same technology stack that I'm using in my portfolio of mobile and SaaS apps that are currently generating $45,903 in monthly recurring revenue. You can copy this exact tech stack not only to build a fully functioning mobile app or SaaS, but an entire software business capable of serving millions of users, generating millions in revenue, and keep users coming back. This is much different than what all the other no-code and vibe code gurus are talking to you about on YouTube, in that I have experience building and scaling multiple successful software businesses, and it takes a lot more than just one or two vibe code tools. We're going to jump in and I'm going to teach you all of the components that you need to build a fully functioning software business. You don't need to know how to code to use any of these tools. You just need to be ready to roll up your sleeves and start building. Let's jump in and let me teach you the Ambitious Labs tech stack real quick. Whenever you're building a software, you need to think about three different components: your front end, your back end, and then the business logic, okay? Your front end is what users look, feel, tap, and touch like when they download an app from the App Store or they visit a web URL. Nowadays, there are two tools that I'm very bullish on. If you're building a 100% mobile consumer app specifically, and you want to charge monthly or annual subscriptions via in-app purchases, I think Flutterflow is a fantastic choice. Flutterflow is what we've been using to teach all of the builders inside of our community, and it's very robust. The only downside to Flutterflow is that it's not quite fully generative AI yet. You can't just talk to a chatbot and have it build all of the UI for you. You have to point, click, drag and drop all yourself. Then you have Lovable. Lovable is a vibe code first generative solution. So you can head over to Lovable right now and say, build me an app for users to register for a charity walk and run, allow users to set up a runner walker profile and pay the $35 registration fee. Normally what I would do is go over to ChatGPT and paste in one of my product planning prompts and then paste that into Lovable here, and that would give Lovable all the context it would need. You call that a PRD, and typically you would put that PRD here into Lovable and then hit go and watch Lovable actually generate the UI. Whereas Flutterflow is a bit different, like I was saying. As you can see here, you're dragging, dropping, pointing, and clicking, but Flutterflow exposes all of the components to you so that you're doing the job of a developer. You're just not having to write code to do it. So that's the fundamental difference between Flutterflow and Lovable. Lovable is definitely more vibe code, so you're just talking to an AI, which I think is where the future is going. Lovable just raised a $200 million funding round valued at $1.8 billion, which means they have a lot of runway, and I'm very bullish that they're going to invest this $200 million into making the product excellent. So if I'm building from scratch right now, I'm very much looking at Lovable. If I've already started working in Flutterflow, I would probably just finish there. However, Lovable is a great place right now and probably where the market is going to move long term. So I'm building my next app actually tonight in Lovable. It actually is the app that I'm showing you here, which is a app for charity users to walk and run. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. So now that you've kind of seen how the front end works, we need to now think about how the back end works and how the app actually comes to life. Well, the first thing that is worth exploring is authentication. How do you get users to log in and sign up? How do you get them to create an account with email and password, sign in with Google, sign in with X? Typically, or traditionally, these were providers that you would have to integrate yourself. But now Firebase and Supabase are what's called a Backend as a service platform, which handles your authentication, your user management, your database, storage, and push notifications. So what does that mean? Well, Firebase is a database as well. It's a NoSQL database that stores JSON objects, okay? So JSON is just a type of data format. It's not as complicated as it might sound, but pretty much you can read and write JSON objects in Firebase. And Supabase is a SQL database, which means you are reading and writing like rows in a spreadsheet almost. SQL is a query language, and it is a very well-known database format that pretty much you can become a full-on SQL developer and you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now you can actually just integrate your own SQL database very easily. SQL is great for like B2B SaaS applications and applications where you're doing a lot of analytics and computation. Firebase and NoSQL JSON is typically good when you're doing like consumer apps and you're saving large unstructured pieces of data. I love using JSON databases whenever I'm building consumer apps or mobile apps that are just small utilities, and then SQL-based apps if I need to have a lot of business logic in there. For example, like the charity walk and run app, I definitely need a SQL database so that I can export easy to read CSVs and spreadsheets and hand that over to the operations team who will be running the actual charity event. Okay, so Firebase and Supabase are different in that way. The cool thing is that they're both very cheap. Let me show you one of my apps inside of Firebase, and you can even see how much it costs to run the Firebase backend. So I'll pull up one of my older apps virally. I'll pull up Closer Coach. And Closer Coach currently, if you look at the analytics, it has, let's go to proper analytics here. Closer Coach has a pretty good amount of users. It has, like, I want to see, not real-time analytics, but I want to see like full last month. Okay, so 2,000 monthly active users, 677 weekly active, and 120 daily active. So it's a pretty decent amount of users. And if I head over to the cost of this, you will see that it costs me $1 per month to run this application. So very, very cheap. Most people I hear are thinking about like, how much is it going to cost to run the servers and how secure is it? Like, you don't need to think about that. Firebase and Supabase handle all of that for you. Nowadays, developers just need to focus on building the product, the security, the managed hosting, the servers, the load balancing, the domain names. All of that stuff is managed for you using these backend as a service. Google is the owner of Firebase, and they offer a very generous free plan. So, like, look, my app is generating 5 figures in revenue, and it's only costing me $1 per month, right? It's very cheap, and so you shouldn't be thinking about that. Supabase just costs $10, and you can get started on the free version very, very affordably. I believe it's $10, like if you are on the startup plan. So Supabase is very cheap. It's free to start, and then you can scale up as you need it. But as you can see here, for $0 a month, you get 50,000 monthly active users. So you don't need to be concerned about your server specs or your server costs. Like, this is going to cost you like pretty much $0 a month, and Supabase will cost you 0 to 25. So very, very small amount of overhead on the server side to run a business that's capable of generating millions of dollars, right? With 90% plus profit margins. So that's your backend, okay? One thing I wanted to show you as well is how the user authentication works inside of Firebase. So I'm going to blur out all of these emails, but as you can see, these are all people who are signing up for my application, and Firebase just records them for me. I can click on view more options. I can delete accounts from here. I can actually reset passwords from here, and pretty much manage all of the user accounts that are on my application. So that's what makes this very powerful. Then you have what I think is the most important part, which is your REST APIs. These are your integrations, your automations, the core business logic, right? Say you're building an AI app. How do you integrate ChatGPT? How do you generate videos if you're building a video generation app? How do you integrate with a third-party data source? Where you're going to do that from your own backend. Right now, I'm loving N8N to build custom backends. N8N is a workflow automation and integrations tool. Think of it like Zapier, but on steroids. I think more for developers. So in one of my previous lessons on my YouTube channel, I actually built out a full API using N8N. So this API scrapes the odds of upcoming sports events, and it gives me all the odds on DraftKings, FanDuel. Essentially, it scrapes all of the odds. It formats the odds and then sends it back to my front end. So I was building a sports betting analytics tool, and that's what this N8N workflow did. I'm going to be dropping a full course on full stack SaaS in Lovable N8N Supabase, and so you'll see how to do that end to end. But the cool thing about N8N is that you can integrate with pretty much anything that has an API. Let me show you why you need that. Well, a lot of people who are building first time, I see this a lot, is where they want to integrate ChatGPT, say, or Claude API into their app, and they're integrating Claude directly from the front end. Like, they're calling the API directly from Lovable, or they're calling the API directly from Flutterflow. That is very bad practice. The truth is, anybody can do what's called deobfuscation, crack open your code, and see your API keys. You do not want to expose your API keys from the front end. You want to wrap them in its own isolated backend API, and that's what something like N8N can do for you. So you can use N8N to create your own what's called wrapper API You call that API. That API will then integrate with an external third party right here. Okay, so you have your API and then the third party API. That way, all of what's happening here is hidden from the front end. So if somebody deobfuscates your code, they can't deobfuscate what's on the back end. That's how you keep this secure. Okay, and if you want to, you can integrate Firebase or Supabase directly from your backend. So if you do need to make, updates from the backend, say you want to like scrape a website every like 1 hour and update a backend, you can do that directly from N8N. You can actually go to create workflow, and you can hit step. You can probably just type in Supabase, and you'll see that there are operations for Supabase. You can even type in Firebase, and you'll see, I think it's called Firestore. That's the database product from Firebase, and you can write directly from there. So notice how you have like 2 layers of access to your database. You can actually access your database directly from the front end, where you can do basic read and writes. Like say, for example, somebody is seeing a list of restaurants and you want to save one of those restaurants to a favorites bucket or a favorites page on the website. You can click save on that restaurant, and you can call, update from the front end of your application and just save that to the favorites database on that specific user. And so those types of very easy CRUD operations you can do directly from the front end. And then things that are more complicated that require, third-party integrations before you insert into a database, those are things you could do from the back end. So this is how you would create a fully decoupled. What decoupled means is you have a front end that's separated from your back end in the most secure and efficient way. This is how you create a fully decoupled application that's capable of truly scaling. Okay. Another thing worth mentioning here for some of y'all who are more technical is you can use Node.js or Python, any other coding language on the back end here as well. You don't have to go with an N8N or a BuildShip or a low-code integrator tool. You can literally write the back end yourself or hire a back end developer if you need. You can now even Claude code it or generate it with Cursor. So if you have your own custom backend, which I've seen a lot of, you can definitely do that from here. Okay. So we just went through the entire architecture. Now that you know how to build the software, now we need to talk about how to build the business. That is fundamentally very different, and it's where most people on YouTube go wrong. To build a fully functioning software business, we need, of course, a front end that users will interact with our application. We need a database for users to track their data, store their information, authentication for users to sign up, create accounts, sign up with email, sign up with Google. Over time, as you scale your application, you might have users who email your support and they say, hey, I need to reset my password, or hey, I can't log in, or hey, the data is not loading in my app. Well, by having a backend as a service, such as Firebase, you can go into here, reset people's accounts. You can go to the storage or the database of that specific user and manually update something if you need. There's a whole operations aspect to all of this that most people don't talk about. When you run a software, you actually have to operate the software too. It's not just like people are going to use it and you have to stay, hands off and it's all magic. We have to operate the software and have the ability to reset people's passwords, check their database entries, and make sure that the records are correct. We may want to, disable people's accounts or change something manually. You over time might do that yourself as an indie or as a solopreneur, but then over time you might want to hire, operator staff or a VA or somebody to come in and actually operate the software. And that's a big part of all of software entrepreneurship. It's something that I had to learn very early in my career. You don't want to be the bottleneck. The developer should not be the bottleneck for the business. The developer should be creating tools for another person to become the bottleneck in the business. If you are the solopreneur or the startup founder, you want to build the software in a way where it creates work for somebody else. That way you can come out of it and then let somebody operate it, or vice versa. You can backfill you as a developer and you can start operating it. For example, you might need to build an admin dashboard where people can, or a customer service agent can come in and actually view the information. Okay, so there's a whole strategy or mindset shift that you have to have where you are not creating a business for you as the developer, but for you to operate with someone else and create those processes. Okay, so your front end, your back end, your authentication, we've talked about this. Now we have your APIs. Okay, so This is where the core intellectual property of your business comes in. You probably have a unique insight into an industry or a business type that only you know and you want to solve a problem for. Does that sound like you? If yes, then the APIs and your business logic is where your money is going to be made. This is where the true core business or the core value proposition is going to be delivered on. So if I'm you, I'm thinking more heavily on these APIs, and I'm starting to build workflows in N8N that actually solve the problem from the back end. Building the front end nowadays is easy. Where the money is made is the core intellectual property in that unique insight that you have for solving a problem a specific way. Okay. Then you have analytics, which is what a lot of people don't talk about. Okay. How do you monitor how users are interacting with your app? This is actually one of my favorite parts, because once you have your application set up, your mobile or SaaS, it's just a math equation from there. What do I mean by math equation? Well, once you have your business set up and you have your funnel, which is a whole nother concept that we'll talk about, your funnel is how users go from finding out about your app to paying for it and continuing to pay for it. Once you have this funnel set up, and I teach this entire strategy inside of Dreams into Apps, how to create a funnel that self-qualifies and self-sells your users so that by the time they create an account and go through a personalization flow, they're ready to purchase. As you can see here, this is a funnel report in Mixpanel. Mixpanel is an analytics tool that everybody needs to have. If you're not tracking how users are interacting with your app, you're essentially saying that your software is magic and it's just going to do things. You need to have visibility into how users are interacting with your app so that you can make data-driven decisions. When I was the head mobile engineer at PrizePicks, I didn't just come up with ideas for features. I looked at our Mixpanel reports. Our marketing team would drive traffic to our mobile app. I would look at the reports, figure out where the drop-offs were. Mixpanel has a ton of different reports as well. I'd figure out where the drop-offs were, and I would use data and say, yo, if this conversion rate right here is 15%, how do I get it to 30? And that's still how I'm thinking today. So what you see here are steps in a funnel that users are going down a specific path and then landing on a conversion event. So this is my paywall, right? It says paywall seen. So when somebody sees my paywall, it triggers this event. I'm pretty happy with how many people go from, downloading my app. This is actually a download event. I get 575 people to download my app. Out of those 575 people, 390 of them are seeing the paywall. It's just as if 575 people came into a store that you run. Like say you have a store for home parts, like roofing parts. Imagine 575 people came into your store. You asked them all these questions about, what kind of roof do you have? What material is it made of? What's your problem, right? That's what each step of these funnels is just questions and qualifications. And then if you have the solution for them, you make them an offer. So out of those 575 people who downloaded, I made an offer to 390 of them. That's just as if you made an offer to 390 people who walked into your roofing store and you said, hey, I have the part for you. Say somebody comes into your roofing store and they're looking for plumbing parts. Well, they would drop off at any one of these points when you ask them the question. I hope that makes sense. It's a beginner to marketing concept. And that's actually a part of software entrepreneurship that I'm also teaching inside the Dreams into Apps Accelerator, where once an entrepreneur finally launches their app, we have to change their mindset from a technical builder who wants to just sell the features to selling the outcomes and the benefits, right? People aren't buying, patches to their roof to put a patch on their roof. They're buying it to stop a leak and to live a happy life so that they don't have water falling on their head. Similarly, people are going to be using your application to achieve some sort of life outcome. If you're a consumer, it's probably some emotional outcome. If you're a business owner, it's probably a logistical or a business outcome. So that's also a mindset shift that we have as we go from builder to marketer once we achieve this milestone of turning our software into a math equation. All right. So I put together an entire list of the technologies that I use. I use Node.js, I use Python as well if I'm ever trying to hand code something. And the last thing is OneSignal, okay? So OneSignal is how we do what's called Reengagement. And this is where you start squeezing extra revenue once you have all of the base line of your software business set up. Reengagement is the idea of hitting people up talking to them again via push notification, via email, and automatically sending them messages, push notifications based on where they are in a user journey. For example, I want you to think about it this way. When somebody initially downloads your app, our goal is to get them to what? Create an account. So you have download, and then you're going to have someone create an account. Okay. Once someone creates an account, you want to get them to probably see the paywall. Okay. And then once they see the paywall, we want to get them to start a trial or make a purchase. Inside of Mixpanel, we will see that people are going to drop off when they, create an account right here and they make a purchase. So how do we keep contacting them whenever they drop off right here, right? There was 434 people who created an account and only 60 of them purchased. That means we have, 370-ish people that we can reach out to. So if somebody, creates an account and they fall off, right? We call this a fall off or a drop off. I want to be doing what's called re-engagement. Send a push, after 1 hour, right? Then send an email after 4 hours. And we always want to be pushing people back to the paywall in each one of these re-engagement sequences, right? So that's what OneSignal allows you to do. You can set up these re-engagement sequences when people drop off. You say push 1 hour later. Let's say email 4 hours later. And then we'll say push 24 hours later. And we would create a sequence that's probably 3 to 5 days long or longer, if you will. And that will push people back into the paywall. Think of it like an abandoned cart flow if you are in the e-commerce space. Awesome. So you can do that inside of OneSignal. OneSignal is very, very effective and easy to set up. You can see I have both of my products here on OneSignal. Closer Academy recently, I set up what's called journeys. So if somebody starts a trial, I send them valuable emails and push notifications for 5 days. My trial is 3 days. So my goal is that if I keep sending them information for 5 days, they will be excited about what I have to offer. There will be a face to the brand. There will be testimonials and tutorials on how to use the product effectively. And I've actually seen that that's increased my conversion rate by 3% since I implemented that. I can even show you. You'll see that I launched my OneSignal Journey version 1 about here, and I was at 19.6% conversion rate. I launched this journey. This weekend actually had a bug in the app, so there was actually a bug here that I failed to track. But there was a bug in the app that took the onboarding flow conversion rate down. But you can see here, when I launched the OneSignal Journey, that increased my conversion rate to almost 23%. So I squeezed out 3% more people who downloaded the app and actually made a purchase. So everything I just taught you is how you build a fully functioning software business. You could take everything I just taught you and go do it on your own. Or if you want me to coach you and work with you one-on-one, there's a link in the description to join Dreams into Apps, where we'll work together one-on-one and I'll teach you how to implement all of these step-by-step in the right order and go from idea or wherever you are today to getting your first paying customers and beyond. I've helped over 1,100 entrepreneurs who don't know how to code or come from some technical background build and launch their own successful software businesses. And if you're interested in working with me, check out the links in the description and make sure you like and subscribe for more startup entrepreneurship content. I'll see you in another video.